Hi, my name is Susan. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm so glad you could join me for this open heart practice. We'll do a yin practice today, so expect some long, slow holds, supporting ourselves. We'll be very grounded. We'll stay low to the ground for all of our postures. So go ahead and take a moment, grab a couple of props for your practice today. A couple of blankets or towels are nice. If you have cushions, pillows, bolsters, that's all great as well. And a couple of yoga blocks if you have them. We'll just use those to help support the body, to bring yourself some comfort so that we can be really still today as we move into opening our heart today. So we'll start seated. So go ahead and bring yourself into a comfortable seat. We'll do a quick little pranayama breathing practice before we begin. And as we're just coming off the full moon, as I'm recording this, we'll do chandra bhedana, which is moon piercing breath. So most of us have probably heard of nadi shodhana, right, which is alternate nostril breathing. It's similar to that. It's kind of an offshoot of it. We'll be breathing in through the left nostril and out through the right. All right. We'll use the right hand typically to close the nostrils. I like to fold over the middle three fingers and use thumb and ring finger, but you do what works for you, okay? So let's begin by just sitting up tall. You can rest the hands on the thighs for a moment as we begin. And if it's comfortable for you, allow your eyes to softly close. As your eyes close, just use this opportunity to simply tune in, to just tune in to what's going on in your body in this moment. Notice the physical sensations. Notice any emotions that might be sitting with you today, or any particular thoughts or thought patterns. Just really not judging what you discover, but just simply tuning in so that we know our starting point, where we came from this morning, right? Now, please bring your awareness to your breathing. Just watching your breath as it moves in and out. So the pranayama practice that we'll use this morning, not so typical really for a heart opening practice, but I thought it's appropriate again for the time of month, just coming off the full moon last night. And it's actually, it is associated because we're inhaling through the left nostril with a cooling lunar energy. So it's grounding, helps steady the mind, reduce tension, reduce stress. It can reduce heat in the body. It's been shown to reduce high blood pressure, to reduce fever, even heartburn. And so we'll use this today to begin our practice today. So let's find the mudra with your hands, or the fold, whatever you're using for the hands. And we'll inhale through both nostrils to begin with. And then exhale through both nostrils. Now close the right nostril with the thumb and inhale through left nostril. And then close left nostril, exhale through right. Good. Close the right, inhale left. Exhale through the right. Good. Inhale left. Exhale right. Just continue like this. Inhaling through the left nostril, exhaling through the right. Now you might tune into the cooling, calming, grounding effects of this practice. You might notice the coolness as you inhale the breath. And perhaps you're even tuning into the heat as you exhale. Let's take 5 more rounds like this, please. And then as you complete, release the hand back down to the thighs. Return to breathing through both nostrils. Just tuning in, noticing the effects. It's calming, soothing. Maintaining as much stillness as you can here. Let's go ahead and bring us into our first posture. We'll lie down on your backs in reclined butterfly. So for butterfly pose in yin, we take soles of the feet together and drop the knees open wide as you recline down on your back. Now, if you have yoga blocks or maybe a couple of pillows, you can certainly bring those in to support outer thighs. And I'll set a timer for our practice today. So get yourself set up into the posture. Hands can rest wherever is appropriate for you, right? You might bring them by the sides with the palms up. You might allow them to rest on your low belly. So as I mentioned, today we'll be working through a practice to encourage opening of the heart, right? When things happen in our lives, in our experience day to day, that maybe are beyond the normal human experience, although what really is beyond, right? We're all living this. It's all part of our human experience. But because of what we encounter through the day, sometimes we have no choice but to disconnect and kind of close down, right? To protect ourselves. Maybe we not only disconnect from society, but family, from our body, and even from our own heart, right? Almost as if no place really seems safe. So our practice today is an offering, a way for us to reconnect with our body, accepting ourselves as we are, allowing ourselves to be in these postures today, just as we are, as a way of acknowledging our body and its wisdom. And through our yin yoga practice, we're taking time to sit down quietly, listen to our body so that we can reconnect. We create a space for the body to feel safe so that the heart can open. Primarily, we'll be working with the upper body in our practice today, opening heart and shoulders. We have a little bit longer in this first shape in reclined butterfly, and I wanted to share a poem called Open by Dana Falls. Nothing to wall out or hold in. Open like the wide sky at twilight. Open as the ocean or the reach of the unknown. Open as a heart that chooses not to close. So perhaps today, that might, at least in part, be your intention today, just to stay open, grounded and open. Bring hands to the outer thighs. Let's lift the knees up. Soles of the feet to the floor. If you used any props for that posture, you can set them off to the side. We'll roll to one side or the other. Bring yourself up to all fours, please. So flip on over to all fours. It's a little bit of movement here, a few rounds of cow and cat. So positioning hands under the shoulders, those fingertips spread wide, knees underneath the hips. Let's inhale. Arch the spine, open the heart. You might even turn your gaze to look up. And on exhale, tuck the tailbone in round like a cat, opening up the back of the heart. Inhale, cow pose, tailbone lifts, belly drops, chest is open. Exhale, round like a cat, pushing the floor away. Let's continue this on your own. Moving through the spine, the vertebrae, one at a time, just as if you were moving through a bicycle chain or a strand of pearls or whatever it is, mala beads. Inhaling to open. Exhale, round. Reconnecting with body, with breath. It's really lovely if you do this practice. We're here for about 30 seconds more with eyes closed. It really allows you that opportunity to tune in. Begin to reconnect with the body. Yeah, let's inhale to a neutral spine. You can sit back onto the feet. Grab your blocks if you have yoga blocks. If you don't have yoga blocks, a couple of firm pillows will work for this as well. I'll keep the heels or the sit bones back on the heels, and we'll take child's pose with the arms forward, but I'll bring the elbows up on top of my yoga blocks. And then palms can be pressed together, and I'll bend the elbows. Let me get this timer set first. I'll bend the elbows so that the thumbs can just rest on the upper back. Now, depending on what support you have and your range of motion, with the elbows lifted, the forehead might come to the floor, but it's not necessary. If it doesn't come to the floor or it's uncomfortable there, feel free to bring some extra prop or support underneath the forehead, okay? It's also okay, as long as there's no strain in the neck, for the head not to be resting. So keeping child's pose, so hips back to the heels, getting a little bit of release through
the glutes, the low back here. And with the elbows elevated, we get this really lovely stretch, not only to the backs of the arms, but you might be feeling this in the back of the shoulders, this upper back, the lats, right? Those big wing-like muscles in our upper back. Actually, not just the upper back, the fibers of them run all the way down to the lower ribs. Just breathe into that space. We've got a few breaths more here. And gently opening. You might also feel this through the underarms, across the chest. And if you're lucky, maybe you're feeling it in all of those places, huh? Mhm. And slowly start to release. If you have the elbows bent with the hands behind the head, pull those out. Take the blocks, set them off to the side, or whatever prop you used. If you had pillows, pull those off to the side as well. Glide forward up onto the knees. Similar, but different. For this next posture, we'll take Anahatanasana, or melting heart pose. So now, instead of having the hips back to the heels, we'll keep the hips lifted with the hips about stacked over the knees. Now, we'll be here about 2.5 minutes in total. So I'll show you first the full variation, taking 2 arms forward, letting the heart melt down, forehead to the floor. Now, if this is too intense for your shoulders to have both arms extending forward, you could do one arm at a time, and I'll just kind of give you the halfway point. So if you're doing one arm, you'll bend one elbow in, let the forehead rest there, and then just extend the opposite arm. Okay, let me get that timer going. So all right, settle in here. Remember, you're always listening to your body. If your body says not 2 arms at one time, then just come into the half variation. And we'll do one at a time. Just breathing into the space around the heart, right? The chest, the shoulders, the backs of the arms. And this is called melting heart. So as best as you can, just soften all the tension that you're holding around the heart, the chest, and just let the heart melt down. But if you've chosen to only do half variation, go ahead and switch now to the other arm, bending opposite elbow in. Just slowly today, methodically, opening up space around the heart, the upper body, the shoulders. Just a couple breaths more here. Let your hips sink back towards your heels. Forehead to the floor. Sweep your hands back by your feet. Now, if forehead doesn't come to the floor, you can grab that block or pillow support. We'll just pause here for a moment with the arms resting alongside the legs, just allowing the shoulders to melt, to drop. Hmm. Bring the hands out by the knees. And just use the strength of the arms to bring yourself upright.
Ah, all right. Next posture. We'll use a block.
Just one single block. Now, if you don't have a block,
trying to think something else that would work really well for this. We do need the firmness of the block. You could, I don't know if you have a big, those old time dictionaries, right? Big, thick book, something like that would work as well. A couple VHS tapes. Oh gosh, I'm aging myself.
but we'll take whatever it is that you have. A yoga block would be best. Up toward the top of your mat and wrap the mat around the yoga block. So we'll be using the edge of the yoga block. We'll do a subscapular release. This is one of my favorite little openers for the ribs and the space around the heart. And we'll lay down on top of this block with this front edge of the block. So, you know, we've got the mat folded over it. That'll make it slightly more comfortable. But we'll take this front edge of the block and we'll rest our side ribs on it. Now, here's what we'll do. So I've got the right side I'm doing first here. Take your left hand and just palpate around underneath the armpit area. You know, just find your ribs, right? You can probably feel the outer edge of your shoulder blade there, right? And just go underneath and find the ribs. And as you palpate around there, you're probably going to find a place that's a little more sensitive. And it's going to sound mean, but I want you to lay down right on top of that spot, right? You ever get a good massage where they find that tight spot and they just work it? We're doing that, but we're doing it for ourselves, right? Getting really deep into that tissue. So find that spot and then ease yourself down so that you can gently rest on top of that spot. Now you're controlling, better get that timer set. You're controlling how much weight you put down on it, right? You could completely rest the body and just hang out here. If you need to take a little bit of weight, maybe you prop up on the elbow, okay? You do you. I've already got the timer going. And just find that spot and see if you can find as much comfort as you can here. Now, when you initially arrive, chances are pretty good that it's going to be really sensitive, right? And your body might start to tense and tighten up around it. As best as you can, instead of gripping, soften, right? As I was talking about in our opening, right? When we have experiences in life that can be overwhelming, we have a tendency as humans to close up and to cramp up. Not cramp, maybe cramp's not the right word, but we tighten up, we hold in. And that's what happens here when we lay on this sensitive spot. What our body, the physical reaction of the body is to grip and tighten. It's our job while we're resting here in this posture to soften. Breathe into it, breathe through it. Instead of turning away, turn toward it. Right? Walk through it, breathe through it. We've got just a couple breaths more here on this side. On an inhale, let's start to pick yourself up off of the block. Come on up. And you know we're going to go right and do it on the other side. Just so my back's not toward you, I'll go ahead and take mine to the other side of the mat, but you can stay right where you are and just flop your body over, okay? Coming to the other end of the mat. So now I'll do left. So wrapping that block up, front edge of the block, find that sensitive spot. Chances are it's going to be in about the same place, but it's a good idea to just feel around and make sure you've got it. And then that front edge of the block, we just lower ourselves down onto that spot. Now, I've got an extra cushion up here, which I love this variation here, so that I can rest my elbow and then I can rest my head in the hand.
Mm. Oh, whoops. As we got settled in there, then I forgot to turn on the timer. Don't worry, I got you now. Mm. Mhm. Ooh, interesting to me. It's always interesting to me as I observe the body, taking the second side on my body. Ooh, this side is a lot like, I don't know if I just found the right spot. It's a lot more sensitive over here. You might have found that one side or the other is a little bit more. Hmm. Soften into it, breathe into it. Hmm. Remind yourself of our intention today, just to be open, but gentle, right? We don't need to just rip the heart open. We're slowly, methodically just going to open up space in the upper body to make more room for the heart to expand. Mm. Every once in a while, you might notice and feel that little release, right? As the tissues soften. 2 breaths more. And slowly. Oh, start to make your way up from there. Oh my gosh, I just love that. As you come off the block, you can set that off to the side. As we set up for the next posture, you won't need anything for the next posture. We'll come down onto your belly. All right. Depending on your floor situation, you might like to have a blanket handy for this posture, or actually the next posture, but come onto your belly. We'll take Sphinx pose. Now, in our practice today, we'll actually move through Sphinx twice. All right. Each time we'll hold for about 2 minutes. Now, you can just prop up on elbows here, elbows right under your shoulders, right? So we don't want the elbows out wider, kind of compromises the shoulder. We want that elbow stacked right underneath the shoulder with the forearms parallel to one another. So we'll get a nice release in the spine as we open the heart. Another variation here with that blanket, if you have it there, is to bring the forearms up on the blanket. And you have 2 choices with the head, keep it lifted or drop it down. And our legs are extended right back behind us. Just a lovely, gentle, supported back bend. Sometimes when we hear the word back bend, our initial reaction is to kind of go, no, not me, not into that, right? But remember, back bending, it's actually kind of a, not necessarily an accurate wording. We're not bending the spine. What we are is we're extending the spine and opening the front of the body. Mm. Breathe into the space of the low back. Breathe into the heart space. Take a couple breaths more here. On your inhale, we'll come all the way down. So all the way down, and we'll take a half frog. So you could stack the hands or the forearms and then bring your left knee up alongside the body. If you have that blanket handy, this is actually really nice to take the blanket underneath the inside of the knee for a little more comfort. And this will feel really nice and lovely for the low back. So I've got left knee up alongside of me. And feel free to turn your head to look to the left as well. So you're on your right cheek or your right temple. And softening into the core of our body. Inner thigh, inner groin, soften. And if the mind is really busy today, or really any time, a great tool to use to calm the mind and keep yourself present is to keep tuning back into your breath. And direct the flow of that breath right into the areas that you feel the sensation. And so you might imagine breathing in the inner thigh and groin where you feel the sensation. Let's take one more breath here. And then bringing left leg alongside the right. Prop yourself back up on top of your elbows, your forearms again. If you used the blanket, you could bring that back in, or you can choose to just have forearms down on the ground. We'll come back to Sphinx pose once more. So elbows under the shoulders, forearms parallel. I like to lengthen the legs back a little bit, give a little more space to the lumbar spine. And again, choose to either keep the head lifted or drop it down. Keep tuning in instead of tuning out, instead of closing out. Tune in. Keep tuning into sensation in the body. Stay present. This is your opportunity. Your opportunity to find ground, stability, calm, to restore both body and mind, and to reconnect most especially. Reconnect to all that we tune out of typically as we move through our day. So keep tuning back in. Beautiful. Let's take that half frog on the other side. So making your way out of Sphinx pose. If you used a blanket off to the side, you'll pull that back in again. And now the right knee will come up alongside of you. Possibly stacking
forearms or hands. You can turn to your to the left temple or the left cheek. Just settle in. Allowing the heart space to be grounded and open. Softening into any and all areas that you feel tension, tightness, holding, or gripping. Soften, release, and open. Just a couple more breaths here. And we'll slowly start to make your way out. Right leg comes down alongside the left. If you used a prop, pull that out of the way. This will be the most active thing in our practice today. Press yourself up off of the floor. And two choices, either downward facing dog, or if you're not into that active of a posture today, puppy dog pose, which is melting heart, right? So on the knees, arms extend forward and drop the chest. So a little more active than our variation that we did earlier if you're choosing puppy dog pose or melting heart, right? We're going to keep the forehead up, or take the more active variation and bring yourself on up to downward facing dog, hips up and back. We will hold this for a little bit of time. So choose what works best for your body. You could even start in downward facing dog and then come down to puppy dog pose. A little bit of a bend in the knees if you're in downward dog. Really lifting hips up and back, pressing into the hands so the heart moves back. Heart moves back toward the thighs. Tailbone is lifting high. Neck is long. So even in this upside down position, we are drawing shoulders away from the ears. And about 5 more breaths, please. One more breath. Inhale. If you're in downward dog, come back down onto your knees. We'll prop up a little bit for this next posture. Let's take a fish pose, Matsyasana. So depending on what props you have, will determine how you support yourself in this posture. I happen to have this great little
bolster. It's a thin bolster, and I'll place it lengthwise along my mat. I'll be flipping myself over to lie down on this and keep the length of the bolster along my spine. You could easily make this shape with a blanket. Just take your blanket, unfold it, and then roll it up to make a long space that you could also lie down on, okay? A couple of pillows up there would work as well. You use what props you have around you. So in Matsyasana, I'll turn around so that my bottom stays on the ground, legs will extend, and I'll just lower myself down on top of my support with the arms by the sides, with the palms up. Heart open, but supported. Gentle opening. Make sure you put some kind of support underneath the back of the head so the head's not hanging back. The underlying theme of the practice, other than opening the heart, is also grounding, but to do so gently, right? Gentle support so that it enables you to release tension and holding while softening and opening. Reconnect with the breath. One more breath here, please. And then we'll bend the knees, bring soles of the feet to the floor, roll to one side or the other, using the arms for support as you slowly bring yourself up. You can take whatever prop you had, move it out of the way. We'll actually go right back down onto our backs. And we'll take a final twist here. In our twist today, we'll do twisted roots, one of my faves. So starting down on your back, let's just begin by hugging the knees into your chest, giving them a little squeeze. And then cross your legs like you're sitting in a chair. I've got left over right. And keep the legs lifted and lower both knees over to your right side. So the left hip and thigh are on top. We'll take the arms out like a T or a cactus, keeping both shoulders down. So if you find that when you drop your legs over to the right, this left shoulder comes up, you could grab any of those props that you have around you and support the leg. Right? But find what works for you so that you feel supported, grounded, and open. Feel free to change the position and the placement of the left arm, right, the one you're turning away from, so that you feel the right amount of stretch across the front of that shoulder, the chest, maybe still in through the armpit area, the upper arm. Breathe deeply here. Few breaths more. And slowly start to exit the posture, untwisting. Slowly making your way onto your back. And then we'll get set up for side two. So you'll hug the knees back in. Opposite leg crosses over. In my case, I've got the right over the left now, keeping the legs lifted. The arms go out and the legs drop over to the left, keeping them crossed ideally. Right, remember, as you arrive, if it's more appropriate, more supportive for your body, bring in some props. And then settle in. Be still. Releasing a little more tension with each cycle of breath. A little while longer. On an inhale. Slowly start to untwist, unwrap your legs. Just pause for a moment with 2 feet on the floor, knees up. You could even tent the knees. Just pause. Allow the spine to return to neutral. Hmm. Like a nice neutralizer for the spine after a twist. There's just a really brief bridge pose, maybe just like one breath. Feet to the floor underneath the knees, arms by your sides, lift the hips up. Find a lot of length in the spine. And then slowly let those hips come all the way back down and make your way into your Shavasana, which might be constructive rest. You might just take the knees, let them tent together, or You might extend the legs long, let the feet flop open, arms by the sides with the palms up. Softly close the eyes once more. And just tune in. Tune into the effects of our practice today. Allow your body and mind to absorb, to acclimate to the practice and the benefits of it today. And as I often do when I read a poem at the beginning of class during Shavasana, I'll read it again. I sometimes find that I have a different awareness of it at the end of practice versus at the beginning. So see what your experience is today. It's called open. Nothing to wall out or hold in. Open, like the wide sky at twilight. Open as the ocean or the reach of the unknown. Open as a heart that chooses not to close. Of course, if you have the time and space in your day for a longer Shavasana, then please feel free to stay here as long as you like. Or you can join me in slowly bringing yourself up to sit. Maybe even doing so with eyes still closed. So we continue to stay connected and tuned in, but heart open. And as you sit tall, join the hands in Anjali Mudra, bowing chin to your chest in a gesture of gratitude. Gratitude today for allowing us this opportunity to be quiet, still, grounded, and allow us the space to reconnect to body and to our heart. And thank you so much for sharing your practice today. Namaste.